Good afternoon, everybody. Honorable Minister, PS, distinguished guests, the press. It would be responsible of me to use this opportunity to bring to the attention of livestock owners that laws do actually exist regarding the management of loose livestock. And these have been in existence since 1995 and are quite clear on how to deal with loose livestock. The Animal Trespass and Pound Act, Chapter 905, states clearly that any animal straying or at large or on a public road or in a public place and not accompanied by its owner or found on private land other than that of the owner or found in a protected area or found roaming on mountain slopes are all offenses under the law. It is therefore imperative that one manages their animals appropriately. However, this legislation does not give the right to unauthorized hunters to indiscriminately cull or remove animals from where they are located. Unfortunately, for a number of reasons, and not just peculiar to Montserrat, but systemic throughout the Caribbean, laws such as these are not enforced as they should be, and a number of problems arise as a result. Granted, Montserrat has presented with a unique problem set, that is, the volcano and the abandonment of farms, plus 19 years of negligence has posed a serious threat to the social and economic value of our natural resources. That, if not controlled, can be detrimental for the future viability of this island. Additionally, it has been reported that loose livestock, especially cattle and pig, have threatened trail users, which is detrimental to the tourism product. Many animals have also visited farmlands and backyard gardens and have laid them bare. Loose livestock can also cause traffic hazards and may transmit vectors such as ticks and other parasites and disease to farm-managed stock, compromising our food security. A few years ago, from a poll concluded that 90% of respondents felt that livestock should not be allowed to graze freely and supported their removal if they are causing harm to the natural environment. This led to the formulation of a feral livestock action plan. Despite the prime objective to reduce the impact of feral livestock populations in the environment, stakeholders over the years have also expressed concern that culled meat is being wasted. The Department of Environment initiated 2 meat recovery initiatives with some measure of success. And today's exercise incorporates additional stakeholder consultation and the need to formalize the arrangement to make it more equitable to concerned parties. The Meat Recovery Protocol is designed to work in tandem with the execution of the Feral and Loose Livestock Control Project that is funded by the European Commission's Voluntary Scheme for Biodiversity Ecosystem Services in Territories of European Overseas, or the BEST project. It is hoped that this arrangement will be successful and not jeopardize the main objective, that is, the funded BEST project to reduce the numbers of feral livestock in and around the forested areas of Montserrat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Menz. We'll now have the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, Trade, Lands, Housing and the Environment, Mr. Claude Hogan. Brief statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm minded to just say I agree with everything that Menz has just said. But it's not so simple. As Minister, I have to read these 2 pages, and I understand I have to answer questions at the end. So I'll read the 2 pages, and then I'll say what I want to say after that. I'm honored to have been invited to signature this meat recovery protocol, and I hope it does bring equity and public contribution to the people of Montserrat by us benefiting from the feral animals or loose livestock being culled in Montserrat. Upon coming to office, of course, we had put the program into abeyance pending this protocol. The meat culling, as I understand it, will be restricted mainly to the exclusion zone. This protocol will augment the hunting mandate of the BEST sponsored project referred to by the lead from the Department of the Environment. What we have set out, however, is not set in stone, but we want local control, protection of our water resources, safeguarding of human life, promotion of local consumption, reduction of waste while optimizing the humane treatment of animals. Animals cannot be shot any and everywhere. The Ministry of Agriculture and Environment will be open to adjusting the protocol depending on the lessons learned and, of course, bearing on complaints that we might continue to receive from the people around Montserrat. This protocol, however, is but one tool of many that will be used to improve livestock management on island. My understanding is that the hunting team will include at least 2 members of a meat recovery team as part of a tag system, so we'll optimize meat recovery. As has been explained, this program has injected approximately 327,000 pounds of external funding to control loose livestock on Montserrat. We have currently 56,000 pounds, which commenced spending on 30th September 2013, and this will continue to 30th September 2015. While we are grateful for that support and injection of funds, the recovery program has underlined some gaps that will be solved. I want you to know that there are 2 issues which are before me here is important. One is that we are concerned about whether we should have any culling at all, given that we have an abattoir. But in fact, between now and when the abattoir comes on stream, as I understand it, we continue to be exposed to invasive alien species, some introduced by human activity, and those could have dramatic effects on isolated ecosystems such as Montserrat and spread to the Caribbean. And these sort of invasive species have been the leading cause of extinction of species around the world. They even threaten livelihoods, economies, and public health. So the program is necessary. In the short term, it is recognized that the byproduct of the culling exercise could realize significant benefits to some sectors of society, and that is why we have this program to basically harvest and redirect the meat to the hospital, homes for the elderly, and needy folks. The Ministry of Agriculture and Environment will therefore fully facilitate by allowing a register to be kept of the meat collection. We want to encourage interested persons to form meat recovery teams registered with the Department of Environment. We are going to ensure that persons and monsters are trained so they are familiar with the dynamics of hunting and the health and safety measures that need to be in place. So if we need to continue, we have local knowledge and expertise. And of course, if there are additional teams needed, we'll be kept updated there at headquarters. And the PS is here ready to sign as well. I'm going to leave this to her able supervision and implementation from the Ministry of the Environment. I committed to these matters because I value human health and life, and I also respect the humane treatment of animals. And now I also want to endorse that people should benefit from really good meat that is in Montserrat. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we'll invite members of the media to pose questions to either the representative from the Department of Environment or the Honorable Minister himself.
Should we sign these in the meantime? So
But first we'll have the signing of the
get it over with.
protocol.
Yeah. This is the real thing, and 2 people here would go to court for this. One on my right, and I think myself. But we have some good technicians who have hammered out this program. Stephen, Mr. Gray, and Scriber, and all the hunters, and we believe that we're in good hands with implementation on the 2 main points: safety of our people, protecting our resources, water resources, and of course creating a benefit for our community. Any questions?
Can I pose the first question?
Yes, sir.
In terms of those who go into the unsafe zone as a hobby to hunt, how does this affect them?
We really want to reduce that as a hobby, really and truly. That is why we have the program. It has to be organized. That's where the whole question of safety of human life comes in. It's better to join this program and be under the program with the Environment Department for the recovery purposes, rather than to risk life and limb to do this in abstract or, hunting parties other than those that are under this program. It's not safe.
How does the protocol, firstly, to reduce the hobby type hunting, should it necessarily be reduced, or you want it just to be more organized? Does it have to be reduced for it to be more organized?
Well, what we are presenting is a more organized, controlled, safe way of hunting and also recovery of meat. And we hope that this will actually discourage or reduce the possibility of people making their own insertions into the exclusion zone at their own risk. We are not sending the police behind anybody, if that's what you want to ask, but we are presenting a more organized way of dealing with the problem, both in the short term or the immediate situation of people's safety, and in the long term of safeguarding people on Montserrat.
So the hobby hunting, maybe I should find out, the hobby hunting that is being done, is done just as a hobby, or the people, when they do hunt the meat or hunt the animals, that they make use of the meat? Is it that they waste it? Is that part of the waste that we talk about in the
No. In the
preamble?
program before, this is strictly limited to this program. I'm not even mentioning the words that you mentioned, something hunting, because that is not part of this program. The wastage that was happening is that this program was also continuing without a recovery of meat. So that's where the wastage came in. They were only shooting and leaving, when in fact we could have shot, checked, and recovered. And I think the void was filled by what you call them. But we don't want insertions by others at their risk. And I think we would reduce this risk. It would be less attractive if we were actually recovering the meat, making it available in the safe zone, rather than leaving it like the Wild Wild West, and people are still going in because there's a meat shortage. So basically we are going to use a positive form of discouraging the Wild Wild West shooting of animals by making sure we ourselves act in a humane way in regard to the animals and reduce the waste by bringing the meat out and using the meat for public good. And this should be what the farmers want, because feral animals really are animals that belong to people before, and they want to see that somebody or some public good is put to this meat and not is just used and pillaged by those who did not even have an interest in animals in the first place.
You mentioned there's a mention of legislation earlier. I'm not sure exactly how that was put. And you also mentioned there will be no policing. So how do you plan then to really curb the bad culture, the behavior that we complained about?
The point I was making, this is not about policing. It's about creating a more positive way of doing it. You know, the world runs on supply and demand. If there's meat in there, of wild animals, and people feel that they want to go and get them because there's a demand for it, they will do it. Now, if you create a program where the meat, you're solving two problems. One, you're dealing with the invasive species issue, and you're also going to recover the meat and make that available. You reduce the demand out here. So the likelihood of this hunting for meat, because it has a financial gain to it happening, should be reduced drastically. Of course, the director read out the part in relation to the law, which is not enforced by me. I'm creating a positive way, but of course people are reminded that there is a law about treating with animals. So I don't know if Steve wants to say anything.
Just on the behalf of the director, I'm not the director. Essentially, as the minister quite rightly said, the culling program's main purpose was to reduce numbers of feral livestock. Now, as a result, to have the reduction of feral livestock, to maximize the reduction of feral livestock, to stop and dress the animals, prepare the animals, to bring out the meat, is not exactly an option that they wanted to follow. And the project itself did not cater for the dressing of the meat and the removal of meat from the forest. Basically, the project's aim was to reduce the numbers of animals. Therefore, it was imperative that if persons had an issue with the meat being left in the forest, that a protocol be established where persons who are interested in collecting the meat are invited to come along with the culling team, the current culling team that we have in place, and they will be responsible for removing the meat and bringing it out for public consumption. So that is basically the purpose of this, is to have an organized system where persons will come and collect the meat and remove it. It is not giving what has been mentioned, the hobby hunters, carte blanche right then, so to speak, to go in and do their own hunting and to remove their own meat. What we are concerned about is what is specific to the project. When the project team goes out to cull animals, that there's a recovery team to remove the meat after the animals have been shot.
People normally remember what they hear last, but I don't think anybody suggested that this was giving any carte blanche permission to hobby hunters. I don't think that was said, so you weren't referred to that. The people who usually go get the meat, how are they involved in this?
Well, this is what this protocol is going to expand on. It's actually going to be more open, in that it's going to be advertised that if the hunters are going out to hunt, it will be advertised that those who are expressing interest to collect meat, they have to register at the department. The names are there. So when the hunting crews go out, they will be informed and they will come and follow behind. I am not the project manager, so the nuances of the actual agreement I am not totally au fait with, but the most I can tell you is that it will be more public awareness, more transparency in terms of who will follow the hunting team and who will be removing the meat.
I just discovered, I just heard how I think I'll be able to manfully go out there and publish this story. I'll see where I can get the resources to do so. costing, any cost involved will there be any cost involved? Now you're saying that you don't really have the mechanics and the logistics of the whole thing to hand yet, but any cost would be involved to people on this?
You mean pay them to go in?
Whoever, or...
No,
yes,
well, the way it's in the document, the way I read it is that basically the recovery team is paid in kind from the meat collected, and they can dispose of it or exchange it for cash by selling it, and then whatever residual goes to golden years or shelters or hospital or prison or something like that. But what they're not doing is that they're not going into the business of distribution of meat by private arrangements, the culling team that is, which is one of the things that was suggested, that it's only one set or this person or that person. So that's where the transparency comes in, that everybody who wants to can participate and benefit from the program without putting any money in, and they might even get money out.
Mm-hmm. Last question here from me. Has there been a problem with people claiming ownership to the wild animals, or some of them?
Yes, there has been a problem with that, but I think that is why I kind of stressed the law earlier up in the speech, is that you should not have any free roaming livestock. Your animals should be tagged or should be tethered or should be in a pasture. You know, so basically any other animal is almost considered the property of the crown. Mm-hmm. So it's an incentive for livestock owners to properly manage their animals as well.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Minister. I would like to know the correlation between this project and the abattoir. Clearly, there will be some areas in the forest area where the animals are culled that people would not be able to recover for bringing them in and for processing at the abattoir. Is there any arrangements made in this regard?
For the abattoir?
Yes, the project and the abattoir.
No, well, I did mention the abattoir, but I don't think we are close to bringing the abattoir into stream yet. But I'll tell you something about the abattoir. It's not so much about the local consumption of meat. I think the principal orientation on the abattoir is going to be to have meat processed there that could be exportable.
And that's where I was heading with the question.
So eventually the culling program will come to an end, and hopefully we can process our meat through there, and some of it could be, because they do have a good market for wild meat in places like Trinidad and so on. But at the moment, the abattoir is not in operation for that.
Yeah, I was thinking along the lines of a continuation whenever the abattoir comes on stream, because you did mention about the possibility of exporting the meat products.
Yeah, eventually.
So, getting some of the meat from that area, using the culling process, and bringing them to the abattoir, that could increase the yield.
Yeah, well, eventually. But we have a very big abattoir. I went down there, I heard it was a slaughterhouse, and then I heard it was an abattoir. And it's really an abattoir. It's a really big place, and it's well set up and established. And I think we might have to bring in animals to slaughter in that abattoir. It's big. And Steve, you have enough animals over there to keep it going afterwards?
Well, I can't really comment on that, other than to say that the feral meat will have to be properly tested and certified before it's actually exported. Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a big program, James. But we have a world-class abattoir in Montserrat soon. Yeah. I can tell you that.
One of the things I would like for you to drive home, Mr. Minister, is the whole reason behind the project, the culling project, because we've heard that the feral animals are endangering the water sources and so on. So could you expand on it a little bit so that people get an appreciation? Because people are really saying, look, why are they killing the animals wantonly?
Yes, Stephen and I had a discussion on that, and I said to him, Stephen, it's two problems we're dealing with. One, we're dealing with a problem where people really don't think that we should even be culling anything, especially if we have the abattoir coming and we should be waiting to process the meat through there. And the second thing, of course, is that we are culling the animals and the meat is wasted. So harvesting solves part of the problem for the time being, but we have to continue the culling for the two main reasons. One is the safety of people in respect of generally invasive species which get into the ecosystem and feed back into the human environment. And some of those diseases you hear coming out of some strange places, it ends up that usually something from animal has gotten into the human food chain. So this invasive species thing has to be taken seriously. Even the amblyomma tick, for example, if it proliferates too much in our exclusion zone, the ticks could spread throughout the Caribbean. There are other, problems with different kind of viruses that could come from animals into, and we have a small space over here. We don't want to have another type of volcano where there's an eruption in the exclusion zone. This would be an eruption of these invasive species situation, and it gets into the food chain over here, and we have another crisis on our hands. So the main reason is that the safety of human life in this safe part of the island depends on us keeping the numbers down. I'm putting it in Montserrat language. You have to keep the numbers down on these animals in the exclusion zone to contain the problems that the animals have. And of course, the second reason, James, is that we want to actually reduce the likelihood of people wanting to go in there without being in a controlled situation to hunt for animals or to remove meat, right? So that reduces that possibility of people getting in there and getting themselves injured, right? So it's very important that we realize that this is not a Montserrat problem, it's a Caribbean problem, but it would start with the Montserrat people feeling the effects of any invasive species situation that comes into our human chain. And we don't want that to happen in Montserrat. So we have to let the culling program continue for that purpose. But of course, we in Montserrat, we already know that we kill our goat in the backyard and our pigs every Christmas. We know how to deal with that. We know how to, we have done that many years. I don't think we have anybody reported of dying from eating too much goat water. And we don't want to get rid of the animals and just leave the goat meat in there. I love goat water. I love Mrs. Morgan goat water. And she's still advising on cooking goat water. So we're killing two birds with one stone. Keep out the invasive species, keep the people safe from any proliferation of problems coming from the exclusion zone, and we still get some goat water. Thank you very much.
We'll take one last question.
I hope it's an easy question. I'll give James.
Yeah, it's more. it's more or less for you to sell the quality of the meat that we have on Montserrat, because I was listening, I think last week, to a consultant on the Farmers Corner program who spoke of the quality of the meat that we have in Montserrat, and primarily based on the fact that the kind of feed that we have, the grass and fodder and so on, that we use. And she was saying that, this augurs well when the abattoir comes on stream, that we can process that meat and, export it. So I'm just saying, here is a chance for you to sell the quality of meat that we have in Montserrat.
I should have listened to the program and repeat what he said. But but really though, from my own, I'm a farm boy. I come from Longround, and I know everywhere in Montserrat, all our animals have always ate grass. The problem with Montserrat, or the good thing about Montserrat, I should say, is that we do not yet have any situations where we are feeding our animals anything other than grass. And the animals in the wild are proliferating because there's lots of green coming back to Montserrat. So they're feeding in natural environment, they're running in the wild, and they're firm and powerful, good protein. And it all goes well for the meat production from Montserrat. I hope that we keep it that way. I think in the context of the culling program, that we'll keep down the ticks and any other invasive species, right, Stephen? And therefore we could keep that program running and feed into the abattoir when the PS gets it complete, because she's working on that. And we should make some foreign exchange. As I said, we have demands from Trinidad. And I didn't want to tell you all this yet, because maybe we should have a next press conference. I did have a return visit from an investor or prospector from Guadeloupe on the number of donkeys we also have, and some of the goats that they want in Guadeloupe to feed their restaurant and hotel industry. And he flew over here on his private plane on the 6th of November. He did a survey of the island, and they're planning to chart up a boat, and we'll have to look at how we can start to supply Guadeloupe. But that's up and coming. So there is everybody tipping off everybody, and all the experts are talking about how good Montserrat meat really is, which is really good. When I start to see the money coming into the treasury, that is what is really good. Right, Pierce? Thank you. I think